Because back in 2005, becoming a green port was considered cutting edge. People even questioned what exactly that meant. But 20 years later, the second busiest port in the U.S. is proving that not only can they handle more cargo volume, but they can do so while reaching for ambitious climate goals. Now, the Port of Long Beach is an economic driver for the city, but they dealt with numerous complaints over the years of harmful emissions from its port equipment. So it was imperative for the port to be a leader in environmental stewardship, and since they've led the way in reducing emissions, cleaning up the air, thanks in part to zero emissions technology, cleaner fuels, and stricter regulations. The third floor of the Port Administration building in Long Beach is like a mini museum, and it's where Chief Operating Officer Noel Hasagaba is explaining the port's history.
This is a centerpiece of this floor, and you see this three-dimensional map of the port.
Its history dates back to the 1910s, but 2005 will always be a shining moment. That's because Long Beach became the first port to adopt a green port policy to reduce emissions and clean up the air. Now, 20 years later, Noel is proud of the achievements, but is excited for the future as their investment in becoming a zero-emissions port pays off.
That's the reason why we're in a position now to achieve zero-emissions operations. Zero-emissions cargo handling equipment by 2030. Zero emissions trucks by 2035.
Mario Cordero was a harbor commissioner when the green port policy was adopted. At the time, the port saw double-digit growth in containerized trade, which was great for the economy, but horrible for air quality. Now as CEO of the Port of Long Beach, he says the green port policy has reduced diesel soot by 92%, nitrogen oxides by 71%, and sulfur oxides by 98% through a combination of incentives and regulations for all operators within the port.
I think we're very proud to say that on the 20th anniversary of the green port policy, not only did we have milestones along the way that we announced, now we have empirical data of significant progress.
But their quest is not over, not until the port reaches zero emissions. In addition to transitioning port equipment, the Pier Wind project is on the horizon. The proposed multi-billion-dollar project would build a terminal to assemble and deploy floating offshore wind turbines for renewable energy. But some have voiced concerns over the cost.
In my view, what we're doing is what we talk about, the definition of sustainable development. We want to make sure the next generation is able to live at least the kind of life that most of us grew up in.
As the region still reels and recovers from the destructive January wildfires and natural disasters continue to intensify in part by climate change, Noel says it's critical for the Port of Long Beach to work through the challenges of getting to zero emissions.
A lot of what we're seeing today may be mitigated, may be abated. We don't know, but what we do know is that it's the right and responsible thing to do.
That's why they'll continue down the path they started on in 2005 to lead green. So lots to be proud of, and the data that shows improvements over the last 20 years, but they tell me that they can't officially say mission accomplished until they get to zero emissions, which is the direction they're going in now.
Right. Hey, at least they're headed that way. And as the gentleman mentioned, they're making a lot of progress and they have the data to prove that. What are some other green projects currently underway at the port there, Sarah?
Well, there's many, but one is a huge investment to expand their rail yard. And the reason for that is moving cargo by rail will be more efficient. It will also reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The port estimates that one trip by train equals 750 trips by truck. Of course, trucks will still deliver cargo. Those are also transitioning to zero emissions technology. But by moving some of the transportation to rail, by moving the cargo, will also reduce traffic congestion as well as improve air quality along the 710 corridor, where many surrounding communities now have to deal with poor air quality.